There's a story my dad shared with me recently that I can't get out of my mind and I need to share it with you. And it's a story from more than 30 years ago, back in the days when milkmen still did their rounds delivering us milk. Now, first, when I grew up as a child, I remember it being milk bottles, but prior to that, they would pour fresh milk into the old billy cans that families left out overnight. Now, one of the milkmen was named Bruce, and every day he'd make his run pouring milk faithfully into the cans left out by the customers. But one morning he stopped at a home and he noticed that something was missing. She hadn't left a can out. And curious, he asked the woman who lived there and he said, "Where's your can? Why haven't you put it out?" And she looked down, she felt ashamed, and she admitted quietly that she didn't have money to pay for that week. Now, this would have been easy for Bruce to shrug, to move on, to tell her to come back when she could afford it. But instead he said gently, "Go on, put the can out. It's okay, we'll look after you." And when she did, he filled a can with milk anyway. And not just that day, not just that week, for 7 or 8 years, whenever the woman didn't have the money, Bruce made sure that she still had milk on a doorstep. He never made a fuss about it. He never kept a tally. He just poured the milk over and over again, making sure her children never went without. Now, fast forward 3 decades, and out of the blue, Bruce receives a phone call. The woman, of course, now much older, as is Bruce, had tracked him down in the phone book and she asked, "Do you remember me? You used to deliver me milk." And she said her name and he said, "Yes, of course I do." And she said, "I'd like to come and see you." So when she arrived, she explained why. And she said, "Look, I remember what you've done and I've come here to repay you, to pay back the money I couldn't give you all those years ago." And of course, Bruce shook his head and he just smiled and said, No, don't worry about this. Of course that was fine. You see, because for him it was never about the money. It was about the goodwill. It was about seeing another human being in need and choosing generosity over judgment, wanting to make sure that someone was taken care of. And that, my friends, is the heart of this story. The goodwill of people is something that echoes far beyond the moment of when it actually happens. Think about it. What Bruce did wasn't grand or showy. He didn't make headlines. He didn't post it online or expect recognition. He just poured the milk day after day with a kind heart. But kindness has a way of living on, and that woman never forgot. 30 years later, the act was still alive in her memory, tugging at her heart until she sought him out. And here we are decades later, retelling the story once more, passing on this inspiration like a little ripple of water. You never really know how far a simple act of goodwill will travel. It could be a smile at the right moment, it could be offering someone a meal who's struggling, a coffee, or it could be a listening ear when the world feels heavy. Sometimes it's those little things that cost us not much at all, but they end up being the things that mean everything to someone else. And here's the truth, generosity is not about abundance, it's about spirit. Bruce may not have been wealthy, but he was rich in compassion. And that richness spilled over into the lives of others. So here's today's tiny daily kick. Choose goodwill, pour the milk. Even if it's not literally milk, there's something in your life that you can pour out for someone today. Maybe it's a bit of time, a bit of encouragement, a bit of patience when someone is short with you. The world often tells us to hold tight, to protect what's ours, to keep score. But goodwill says, trust that kindness multiplies. Trust that when you give freely, you're adding light to a world that really desperately needs it right now. Bruce probably never imagined his simple choice would be remembered 30 years later, let alone retold here now. But that's what goodwill does. It plants the outseed that can often outlive us. So, whatever you face today, let this story remind you, Generosity, no matter how small, it's never wasted. Your act of kindness, no matter how small, maybe become the story that someone carries for the rest of their life. Pour the milk, share the goodwill, and trust that the ripple will find its way long after that moment has passed. That's it for today. If you've been enjoying these tiny daily kicks, don't forget to follow and share the podcast so others can join in too. And if you feel like supporting me, there's a little support button. Think of it like buying me a coffee each month. I'd be forever grateful. I am grateful for you just being here, showing up today. Until next time, I'm Jason Stephenson. Imagine boldly, then go out and live it.